First, let's have a roll call.
Mayor Bain, Mr. Newell,
Here.
Ms. Zajac,
Here.
Ms. Weltman.
Here.
Ms. Bodick. Here. Mr. Lemay.
Here.
Mr. Gentile.
Here.
Dr. Wong. Here.
All right, will you all join me in the pledge of allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda, other than the call to order, is the approval of the minutes for April 22nd, 2025. We have to push those up in the last meeting because I don't think we had enough people who were at that meeting to vote for it. So can I have a motion for that approval?
So moved. Second.
Go ahead with roll call, Tony.
Pardon?
Go ahead with roll.
Comment?
Okay. Mr. Newell,
Abstain?
Ms. Zajac,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman.
Yes.
Ms. Bodick.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Wong. Yes.
Okay. The next item is a motion to authorize the city engineer to start the bid process for Shaker Boulevard pedestrian trail. Any discussion?
No?
Thanks. We are still working on the plans for that section. There are some areas that are a little bit time consuming. And I guess if it was easy, it would already be done right now. So I would recommend that we hold off on bidding it until next meeting. We're close to having plans ready, but not working on it.
Can you give us some color on
Yeah.
stuff?
What are the
Is there
challenges?
Some quirks or something?
Yeah, no, just trying to come up with good solutions. There's a couple of grading issues and a couple of tight spots, and we want to make sure that we've got the appropriate fit for some areas. Trying to avoid most of the project is pretty straightforward, but there's 3 or 4 spots where we're dealing with a bridge or putting a walk in pretty close proximity to the street. So we want to run through a couple different other details and the best way to do it. That's something I'd actually like to get in front of council to see what it's going to look like.
Right.
I think I'd be in a better position to do that at our next meeting.
And grading is because of the slope of the land someplace?
Yeah, the slope of the land, either up or down, or
Okay.
there's some other obstruction pretty close between the curb and where the walks.
So you have to make decisions about cutting into the building.
Either cutting into the
retaining wall,
hillside or,
Yeah.
getting a little bit close to a bridge wall or that.
Okay.
And it's gonna be
Kathy?
on this side of the
It is on the south
Shaker.
side, yes.
city hall side.
All right, so I guess we'll table that until the 24th.
Okay.
Next item is a motion to ratify the appointment of Sheila as the council's designee to attend open records training on behalf of council. We have to do this training every
2 years.
Every,
2 years,
once per term, which because of the alternating terms ends up being once every
once
2
per
years.
term. And we don't have to, the good news is we don't have to attend in
Right,
person.
they
Sheila
put the
can do that
requirement-
for us.
They put the requirement in the code, which, you want to have council members understand open records. And so they put the requirement in and say, and you can send a designee. So you really don't have to know.
Well, like a lot of things in the state, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So can I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Ms. Zajac.
Yes.
Ms. Weltman.
Yes.
Ms. Bodick.
Yes.
Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentile.
Yes.
Dr. Wong. Yes.
When Peter gets back, I'll have a question for him about some audit training that we got an email on.
Mhm.
Oh, here he comes. Let me do that now. Peter, we got an email, I think it was last week, about some audit training that all of us are required to take. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So beginning in July of 2024, there was a new requirement to have all employees have frog training. So it was just something we kind of missed last year. And I noticed that in the course of the audit, got pretty much everybody from the city to do it. I know word was a little slow to council, so I sent out some information to everybody with respect to getting some fraud training. I got some of those back. There's just maybe a couple outliers that we have to finish up. And, you know, if you're one of those people, I appreciate it if you can just get that along to us. There's also one other aspect we're trying to institute also is like some ethics training, and Melissa, our HR person, kind of spearheaded that. So we're also working on that. You can do that, that's great. The auditors are gonna look at anything that is related to an employee. So that would, you know, be anybody that's kind of on the payroll here as opposed to like just a vendor.
Maybe I didn't read it carefully enough. Is there an online training that we can do?
It's 5
Yes.
minutes.
So I can get you over the links, and, you know, you just click on the links,
Okay.
and then there'll be like a certificate that'll come out with your name on it. And you can either print that off and bring it in, or you could, you know, just save it as PDF and send it along and over to me, and, you know, we'll have it recorded. So Sheila's been keeping a great track of everything so far. We just have, you know, like I say, a handful of people really left to kind of finish up.
Was this noted in the audit report as a to-do, or is this
So
just
it was
something
it
we
was
generally?
an email that we got.
I saw
last
that,
week, I
but
think. Yeah.
But was it prompted by something the auditor said? This is a good education?
Oh, yeah, they came up and they asked where our certificates were. And, you know,
Okay,
we had, I think, one person that actually had one based on for doing it. And,
In the fire department?
and we've been working diligently to get everybody's done and recorded. So like I say, there's really a handful of people. We pretty much
Right.
have everybody. And, you know, if you're one of the people, yeah, it definitely helps if we have them.
And was there a link in that email?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
thank you.
one for both the fraud training. The fraud training takes less than 10 minutes counting, you know, printing out the certificate and everything. Yeah, it's like a 7-minute course. And then the ethics training is a bit longer. It's like an hour. But the fraud training is really necessary for the audit too. So I appreciate, you know, we definitely get that done as soon as we can.
was there any other things like that noted on the report? That,
The audit report is still ongoing.
okay,
So it's one of those things that came up, and they're like, well, I pretty much got a start on it right away, and they weren't gonna ding us because, you know, I pretty much have everybody done. I just wanna kind of finish up
Right.
the last couple that I had.
okay.
Do we have that ethics one yet, or is that coming?
It should, I'll have to look at it. I may have sent it in the email, I may not have. There's like two links. One was at the top, one was at the bottom. I thought maybe you had done it. I'd have to look.
Whatever you told me to do.
Okay, I think you did it, because it was an hour. I'll double check before we go.
Thank you, Peter.
Sure.
The next item, excuse me, is ordinance 2025, an ordinance approving the solid waste management plan for Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management District and declaring an emergency. Can I have a motion?
Well,
We talk about it?
let's let him tell us what
Well, I'm
that
trying to get through this faster.
I know.
Oh, it's a
You're doing great so far, Tony.
This is Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District, developed a recycling plan. The original plan was put in place in 1994, and this would be its 5th update. They went through a bunch of stuff. I actually sent around funding fact sheet for you guys in
Yeah,
in your packets. This is a culmination of about 18 months worth of work for the solid waste district, and they work with the solid waste committee. The whole overall plan is 329 pages. What you see were, they just have to go through, it's the development and of the recycling plan requirement by state law. So that's, and every 5 years they revisit this, so.
Any key highlights to the revisions that would be
No, it was-
impact us? at all?
It was pretty generic. There is a executive summary. They had a code that you can punch in and read the executive summary. The good thing is we stayed flat. We didn't get a raise on this. We got a raise in 23. So it's $2, and ours is the lowest in the state. for the size of we're the second largest per capita Cuyahoga County is, so our currently is $2 per solid waste ton
To fund,
to fund the solid waste district. So all the stuff that the solid waste district does with the recycling, with the handling of the contracts, all of that business.
it's the
Just the
administration.
administration of it, yes, so that's where the funds go. And then it also has, on the bottom of the paper I sent to you, I believe, there's a bunch of other little things that they do, presentations, they do community recycling, litter prevention, scrap tire roundup, the bigger, community service projects, so they take care of all that. So that's where all this funding goes, and I'll be back again in 5 years with another update.
Great.
So it's, but it is required by law. Every county in Ohio does it.
Jim, is there a deadline on this one?
The deadline they would have it's gotta be ratified by August the 10th.
Okay, so we can make this first reading and then.
If you wanna go through more.
I mean, there's no discretion here, is there?
This is,
We've done this before. Yeah.
Let's have a motion to pass ordinance
Suspend.
2025, suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atrox?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Ms. Godek?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
And now a motion for the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Yes.
Ms. Atrox?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Ms. Godek?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentile?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Okay, now, next item is a resolution 2025-08, resolution adopting the alternative tax budget of the city of Pepper Pike for fiscal year 2026. Should that be 2026? The agenda says 2025.
It's the
That's my typo.
2026 budget.
Okay,
Yes.
make that 2026 and declaring an emergency. Do you want to tell us about this, Peter?
Sure. The alternative tax budget is outlined in 5708 of the revised code, and it's administered by the county's budget commission. And the tax budget's really a statutory mechanism meant to kick off our budget cycle. We're not adopting a real budget at this point. We'll do that sometime later in the year. However, we're required to pass this tax budget by July 15th, and I have to submit it to the county budget commission by the 18th. And it incorporates revenues, expenditures, any carryover balances that might be available for 2026. The process is important because it legally demonstrates the need for us to fund our operations with property tax. If we do not do the tax budget process, we're identifying that we don't need to levy the taxes, and that means we'll lose the ability to levy property taxes. So Exhibit 1 that I provided, that kind of gives a breakout and identifies what levies we have. And if you look at it, I mean, it's roughly 5.5 million of property taxes, including over 2.8 million to the general fund. And there's roughly 2.3 that goes to safety forces. Over 90% of that goes to the fire levy. And also, we have the levy for bond retirement also. Again, these numbers that are on here, they're totally preliminary. And, what we're doing is just kind of consistent with prior years. And our real budget's going to be passed later in the year. This, however, is just a measure to secure our levies going forward for 2026, so we have the ability to levy in 2026. And then, I think it's worth mentioning too that I saw some legislation come out this week, House Bill 335, in which the state's making it such that, or they're proposing such that we're not allowed to levy inside mills going forward. So anyways, definitely want to demonstrate the need to to levy the taxes.
So the purpose of this is to invoke the county mechanism to ultimately collect taxes, is telling them we're going to do this.
That's it.
Exactly.
So just refresher on this Exhibit A, on this, just understand. So understand the two, I'm just looking at the list here. So general fund inside 10 mil. So that's inside millage, meaning under the limit of 10, right? Remind me.
Right, so every taxing district within the county has the ability to levy 10 inside mills.
Mhm.
And we have a portion of those mills. We actually have two taxing districts, one with the Orange School District and one with the Beechwood School District. And, you know, these are the mills that we levy inside there. The schools take up, you know, a big portion, and Orange takes up like 5.2 mils under that 10 mil limit. And Beechwood's at 6.8. There's some other things like the Metro Parks are in there. The county's got levy for debt service. They have levies for their general fund also. And then, you know, we have ours for the general fund, 1.1 mils, and then the police and fire pensions.
So the first one is inside levy 1.1 mils. The second one, I just don't recall. You say it's by charter, and that allows outside the 10 mils. Am I recalling that right, Peter?
Right. So that's really outside the 10 mils. That's how I took it straight from the tax duplicate. right
Okay.
now.
So that's considered the outside millage, if you will, as the term of art for
Right.
that, right?
It really functions like inside mills in that as property values rise or fall, the revenue associated with the assessed valuation rises in synchronicity. Whereas the levy at the bottom, the fire levy, that's kind of designed to bring in what it originally did when it first passed. So that formula levy is actually on the tax duplicate at 2.8 something mils for residences and 3.5 mils for commercial and industrial property.
Okay.
Then, like, the railroad's got to pay the full rate, 4% for the 4 mils, but that's how those work. So functionally, they're all kind of the same, the by charter and the inside mills.
And the last one, the bond retirement fund is tied to, those are bonds issued for public improvements?
Just to pay debt. So we have a number of things identified, and one of the schedules, I believe, that shows the debt, Schedule 3. Just, you know, goes through the list of
Schedule
things we
3.
have there.
So Schedule 3, just so, does that adjust as the bonds are paid off?
I imagine it could. Traditionally, it's always been the same. Forever, it's been the same, that 0.6 mils. It's never really changed in a lot, probably forever.
But
It's levied inside the 10 mil limitation.
So, this is good, just so I understand, remind me, this goes for Pepper Pike debt, right? It's not
Yes,
assessment debt, it's Pepper Pike debt,
correct.
correct? And as we pay off these bonds, which we're paying off slowly, that millage stays the same? Even as the debt continues to drop?
If we drop it, I mean, traditionally, it seems like we always add debt every year. I know we added like an OPWC loan this year. I mean, generally,
The sewer debt.
But yes, if you ever got to the point where you had no debt, you could choose not to levy that. You would choose
Okay.
not to levy it.
It doesn't happen automatically, we would have to do
So
something.
each year you pass the tax levy.
Right.
And the first step, what you're doing tonight is saying, this is what we need the money, this is what we need the
Mhm.
money for.
Mhm.
Then the county comes back and says, yes, you have these levies to levy.
Hmm. And
And so if you ever did not have debt, which is not in the foreseeable future, theoretically, you could not levy that amount of the tax.
But
because debt-
It's not tied to specific loans
I
that
think
were
that's
made.
Right. I think
It's
that's-
just a general pool of money
That's right.
that we have to use to pay down debt.
That's what it's there for.
Yes.
And this is just referencing our inside millage, or is it referencing both
Well-
parts of the millage, the inside and the outside millage?
Well, I believe it's listed as inside millage.
That's what, okay.
Well, it said by
That's what I
charter.
thought.
I was assuming that's outside
The-
millage, no?
Charter is outside millage. That's
Yeah, that's what this says by charter.
okay.
Oh,
Then
okay.
that's what it is.
Okay, so it's just a pool of funds to pay down debt it's not tied to a bond issuance. It's just a general source of revenue for debt payment.
And Mr. Lemay, I think you're thinking mostly of like, you'll see, debt for schools.
Mm-hmm.
So when they go out for a bond issue for school, they'll say the levy's gonna be X amount of mills, that's what they projected at, and then what the county auditor does is they'll adjust that every year
Yeah,
based on the school's debt schedule. So it might be higher or lower than whatever was originally projected. It just depends on the assessed valuation and what the debt schedule reads.
and in that case, it'd be tied to a specific bond issuance that
Yes.
gets paid off and that goes away automatically.
Yeah, so those
Got
are
it.
the ones that are tied.
Got it. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you for that explanation, Peter. Can I have a motion for the resolution
So moved.
2025?
Second.
08? Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Ms. Zatrek,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman.
Yes.
Ms. Godin. Yes. Mr. Lemay,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is for ordinance 2025-09, an ordinance to approve the current replacement pages to the Pepper Pike codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. Mr. Byron?
Yeah, this is one of those things we do either every year or every other year, depending on your schedule, where you are, the codifier keeps track of changes in state law that relate to the traffic codes. And you want your ordinances to track state law so that you don't have to figure out which law to charge under when the police are doing their work. And then the other thing is, to the extent you change other portions of your codified ordinances, either the zoning code or what have you, building code, this will pick that up. They will make all the changes, and then you'll get replacement pages if you have a book, or they'll put it online so that the changes are updated online.
And as I recall, I think once a year they ask for all the ordinances that we passed.
Right.
And then they figure out which ones need to go in the book and which ones don't.
Yeah. Sheila, when do you get that call? A couple months before they send you this piece of
Yeah,
legislation?
usually I just send it to them.
Okay.
Sometimes they forget.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess we need to suspend the rules first. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Second? Can I second?
Second. Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Ms. Zatrek,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman,
Yes.
Ms. Godin. Yes. Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
And now can I have a motion for the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Ms. Zatrek,
Yes.
Ms. Weltman,
Yes.
Ms. Godin. Yes. Mr. Lemay.
Yes.
Mr. Gentili.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the discussion of future walkability projects. Don, do you have something for us to look at?
That's right, one shoe.
Yep. Good.
We talked about doing a little bit of an update and looking at some numbers and some areas to give you guys a better idea of the benefits of extending the trail in certain locations. So we went through and did some of our engineering stuff, give you some numbers to look at. And just, those are some pictures of some of the stuff that was under construction last fall. And I think everybody is pretty aware of the trail layout that we originally discussed. The blue lines are the 5-foot trails, and obviously the green line is the 10-foot multi-purpose trail. This was what we had presented back in 2023, and this is the illustration that we gave that got voted by the residents. So at that time, I also gave you this exhibit, which showed basically the areas of Pepper Pike where if you live on a quieter side street, you can walk in the street and then get to one of the trails, either the 5-foot trail or the 10-foot multi-purpose trail. And it was a fairly large chunk of Pepper Pike that's being covered by those trails. So this is all stuff that you've seen before. This is a new one. And what we did here was we looked at different areas in Pepper Pike that we could potentially add a 5-foot trail, sidewalk trail area. They all have, we did little counts for all of these, so I'll probably go flipping back and forth on this, but the first one, and I don't know, can you see my cursor? Is that on the screen?
No.
Okay.
I put it to the side in the black and maybe we could see it then.
Yeah, does it show up?
No,
No.
it's just not showing.
You can see that there are colors there,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so at least you can see that. All right, the first one that I'll talk to you about is on the left-hand side, top left, and I'm calling it, Brainerd Road from Cedar in the north to the intersection where Fairmount and Kerrsdale is. That area would service about 230 homes.
Is that in the yellow?
That's the yellow. And what's interesting is you do get a pretty good chunk of Cedar Road there because that's the entrance to the Lux.
Hmm.
That's like 81 units there. And then you also have the Ginger Wren and that subdivision back there, which is pretty high concentration of homes. The next one that I'm going to go to the other side of the screen here, the dark blue, which is basically a section of Fairmount from Lander to Somme. That picks up Snowberry, Chestnut, and there's 3 or 4 other little side streets in that region. That's about 167 homes if you would extend a trail on that side. And that would tie into the Gates Mills Boulevard Trail directly. It's a pretty nice extension.
Don, can
you
I
just
ask-
give us those numbers again? Yellow was
Yeah,
230.
230. Yeah, and then this Fairmount section would be 167. So you have somebody have a question?
Yeah, sorry, Don. The eastern end of that one would go all the way to Somme potentially, or is that that's sort of just question
That's
mark?
Sort of the graphic,
Like how-
but yeah,
yeah.
it might stop a little bit short of that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's not much of a destination, so
Yeah.
when you get to the end of the sidewalk, you basically turn around. There's no additional walk on Somme, so it's not that great,
Okay.
but you could get within a couple houses of the end.
Gotcha.
There's a stretch of Brainerd Road that goes from the circle out here at Shaker. It goes north and then it goes, there's a synagogue and then it goes over basically to that Kerrsdale, Fairmount, Brainerd intersection.
Never color?
That is kind of a teal color on the
Okay.
left-hand side, runs sort of parallel to 271.
Yep.
That is, it's about 78 homes, but it does connect to, City Hall and obviously some places of worship, and schools. So it connects some destinations, which will attract some pedestrians.
What road would you put it on there? I can't.
That's Brainerd Road.
Brainerd,
basically,
okay.
And then, so it runs on Brainerd and then it sort of that diagonal Fairmount Brainerd piece
Okay,
as well.
okay.
So it's not a huge number of residences, but it does connect a few institutional facilities.
Mhm.
So
Would you run that in the median or would you run that on,
I think you pick a side and you run it on.
so not through the median
not through
there,
the median, because the median there is only about 20 feet wide.
right?
And it's one of those, even when a car is turning around in that median, the car is about the length of the turnaround. So I just don't think it's a great spot to put residents out in the middle. There's not a lot of buffer. I think you're better off keeping it on, pick one side and stay on one side.
Because that would be like 4 lanes divided there though. I mean, so that's a long, for
Yes.
residents to reach from either side to that walkway. It's not like one or the other. once if
Right.
it's only 2 lanes.
Right. So
Okay.
more than likely, it would end up on, we would pick whichever side made the most sense. That one's got some issues because there is a traffic signal. Actually, the yellow one that we discussed, the first one, does have a traffic signal at North Woodland, Fairmount, Brainerd intersection. It's a 40-year-old signal. It doesn't have a lot of the modern push buttons for pedestrians and stuff like that. So there's some cost required that we have to do something to upgrade the signal and or the pedestrian access to that signal. Same thing with the teal area there, because you have a pretty, it's a pretty big signal there at the corner of Fairmount and Brainerd.
Don, there's two areas that, I think that's what you're calling teal. There's
Along the top.
along Cedar.
No,
and then-
that's sort of a light green, I guess.
Oh.
Teal is to the left.
Yeah, teal's to the left, yeah, I don't know how well it shows up on the map, but there's sort of a light green, there's two areas on Cedar.
Okay.
I'll get to that one here. That one, fairly large group of residents there, because that Cedarwood subdivision is quite large, and then you have the newer developments that have gone in and just the houses on Cedar. That's 159 lots.
Both of those greens
Both of
together?
those greens together,
Hmm.
yeah. And the destination there is, Gates Mills Boulevard Trail. We have not put in sort of the dark red hatched area. We've gotten, a portion of that funded through ODNR. We are working on finalizing that agreement. Oops, right, here's my cheat sheet. So, this is just my breakdown for the different areas.
So just, Ron, we've already approved Shaker
Right,
and
Shaker,
part of South.
part of South Woodland, did Lander last year.
So Shaker is coming for
Shaker would be this year.
this year still, and the part of South Woodland still this year?
Yeah, South Woodland is out for bid right now.
Okay.
So we're hoping to get some numbers, I think, before our next council.
So this is to tee up for next summer essentially, right?
I think these will be next summer.
Practically, it's for next summer.
This would be a push to try to get it done, designed,
This year.
especially the ones that have signal issues because they take so long.
When is the other part of South Woodland? I thought that was 2026.
That we're looking at with the sanitary sewer work, so it's gonna be timed with that. So that might be a 26 to 27 project, and more than likely you won't be finished with it.
And then-
Were you able to look at Bolingbrook? Because some people were saying about Bolingbrook being really busy or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't, this was just looking at extending the trails, much like we've done in the other areas.
The major
Bolingbrook's
streets.
sort of a separate discussion. I mean,
I agree.
it's, Bolingbrook, it would be a pretty substantial project to do that, because it's not, currently, it's basically a street that has ditches on both sides. So all the streets that we're talking about here have a traditional curb and then a tree lawn area. And if you got into something with the ditches, you're talking about major drainage replacement or changing the construction of the roadway. So I think it's a different discussion.
We also talked about probably after the sanitary sewer would go in would make the most sense.
Right.
So South Woodland, we're doing, remind me, east or west?
We're doing east, from Lander east to,
Right.
to Pine Tree.
Can you talk about that purple pine tree section up there?
Yes, the Pine Tree piece would be to run a sidewalk basically from that Pine Tree South Woodland intersection back to the commercial area. And don't know exactly where we would tie that in, because you do kind of get dropped off in front of Heinz essentially.
Yeah.
Depending on which side of the street you put it on. That does tie, a portion of the city to the commercial area, which is very nice. The Pine Tree piece, it picks up about 64 homes.
And then how come the Chagrin to the school's not on there?
Yeah, that piece, I'm gonna go back to Pine Tree just for a
Sorry.
second while I'm thinking about it. Pine Tree, that section, that would be a little bit lower on my priority, because that's another area that potentially could be sewered, so.
Oh,
when
okay.
that- Depending on the timing of that, then I think we maybe look at doing the sidewalk there.
Okay.
I've kept the Chagrin Boulevard path to the school off this typically, that may or may not be a 5-foot trail, it might be something wider. We've talked about maybe repurposing a portion of the divided highway to have a trail, but really I think there's a lot of stakeholders there that have to
Yeah.
maybe engage in that conversation. So I didn't want to put it in, it's kind of a standalone. So we have issues at the circle, which is a bunch of stakeholders around the circle. You've got the schools, you've got some other institutional uses there that all need to sort of get together and figure it out.
So I think, to my mind, that's, from a safety perspective, one of the most important, because there you have tons of people walking on the side of the road all day long, year round. You know, kids walking across to the library, walking to the circle. I mean, this is all, you know all this stuff.
Well,
So like,
one thing I would just because I was involved in this conversation, the school, for example, the crossing where the kids are supposed to cross to the library, that cost was footed entirely by the school, much to the dismay of the school board at the time. I think it was about $70,000, all the engineering, everything. We tried to get Pepper Pike at the time to participate, but they would not. So the kids are safe if they cross there. There's also sidewalk in front of that school at that point that the school installed. So the kids can access it. My one concern is that I think that the administration of the school and the school board needs to be intimately involved in these decisions. Putting a sidewalk to the school gives the impression that, first of all, kids are supposed to walk to school. I know some kids in the high school after school do walk up towards Heinen's, which they're, if they're in sports, but it's not an open campus. And the other concern that the school really needs to be involved in, and I don't think we should get into it here, is their own security. The campus is not open generally to residents to walk through during the school day or during the camp day during the summer. And so I think it's really important that we don't deliver it to our community as a destination. When I was growing up, it was a great place to access walking trails around the campus. It is not currently considered safe, and I don't need to give examples of why it is not considered safe for any of us to walk around that campus, or, and look at the kids, and they're really cute, and it's great to see the great things that are going on there, but it's just not part of their current security plan. So I think they need to be involved in understanding what access points we would be providing to people.
yeah, but it's I totally take all your points, Melanie, 100%. This is obviously clearly a conversation with the school, but you have people walking on the side of the road, regardless of whether or not we have sidewalks there. And, it's just not safe.
But it's pretty rare, I think. I mean, that
It's
was my
not at
experience.
all. I drive through there.
I mean, kids are not supposed to be walking to school.
But they are. But that's the thing. I mean, they're walking along Chagrin, and not just kids. There's a guy that works at Luna who walks that every single day back and forth. I mean, I know that's one person, but people are walking on Chagrin, whether there's sidewalks or not. And so, the school can have a policy, and we don't need to get deep into this here, but people are walking on the side of the street. That is a safety issue. So I think if we're talking about potential expansion, then to my mind, it makes a ton of sense to.
And I'm not saying
Put
we
that high
shouldn't.
up.
I just
Yeah.
think they need to be
For sure,
intimately involved.
absolutely.
The security of that campus is where there are thousands of children and adults working is the priority. And other people's safety is also a priority, but we cannot set aside the safety of those children at all.
Question, Don. Those are all great points. A couple questions. One, do you have like an estimate of cost
I do.
for like the mileage of each section? And then my other question was, Fairmount, the orange and the dark blue, seems to be divided, but why wouldn't we just do it all at the same time? Because that's what we did with the other larger roads. Why do we break them? Why
Well,
did you?
Fairmount, I do have the sort of orange section that you're
Yeah.
talking about there.
And then with blue.
Yeah,
Like, wouldn't you do it?
they're different because of
Sewer?
the median.
Oh.
The median in Fairmount is fairly small. That section, I looked at that as just a separate breakout because I think you could probably, if you were trying to get the most bang for your buck, you'd maybe just run a trail to Winnie Hill. And then you pick up a huge chunk of the residents on the hill that they can walk over to the South Woodland and then down to the Cursedale intersection. So, I mean, you could run it, you're running it across the Ursuline campus.
Right.
So it's not a bad thing, but there's other ways for the people on the campus. They can actually go to the Lander Trail and walk out to the Gates Mills path. So I don't know, and they might use it, but it's not as big of a destination. It's already been serviced. And that it could be part of it. It just, I broke it out just from the standpoint of finance. I'll show you, this might be better. So this is those different sections, and I'll make this available to you also. But this map, just I put numbers on the number of houses or number of lots that will get serviced by each piece. So
At 159, is that, oh, I see.
it's both sides.
I see the arrows now.
Yes, there. And I didn't break it out by mileage, but I did break out costs. So the first Brainerd Road piece from Cedar to essentially Cursedale is about $960,000. The Fairmount from Lander going east to Butternut, just short of Somme, that's $1,350,000. Brainerd Road and Fairmount from Shaker to essentially the Fairmount Cursedale intersection is $1,250,000. Fairmount from Brainerd to Lander is $680,000, sort of as a standalone project. Pine Tree was about $750,000. That section of Pine Tree we talked about, and the Cedar Road frontage, it's a pretty big number. I have $3 million.
Wow.
And we hope to get outside funding for that if we decided we wanted to pursue that.
Don, why is that so high?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things there that, broke out just comments on each of these, and we already started talking about a lot of this already. But the Cedar Road chunk, there's likely a bridge modification or a bridge installation required because there's a creek on the south side of the road, and the culvert that goes under there is very close to the roadway, actually.
So you literally have to build
So
a
you
bridge.
might have to build a separate bridge to span that.
Wow.
There's some environmental impacts and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
There are multiple signals that need modification. The addition of push buttons and crosswalks and adding them to the timing of the signals, and looking at that whole sort of signal corridor and making sure that, that it can work properly. If you run it all the way out to Somme, which there's a lot of drainage with it.
The signals, is that to cross Cedar?
It's even to cross, well, there's one intersection at, you'd probably be crossing Cedar.
And then there's the one by the post office would not be us.
Well, it's not our signal, but if we're gonna do something that requires modification to it, then we would have to absorb the cost.
And then and crossing some roads that intersect, right?
Right, so Lander
Crossing Lander,
and the Gates Mills intersection is kind of a unusual one.
a very
because
funky
there's
intersection.
two signals, and that one's totally ours, so I think. So that has some big numbers in it, and I'm not trying to do that to scare anybody, just to make you aware that there are a lot more costs involved
And how
in
many,
tying that in.
and how many homes are served up there?
It was a lot, I think it was a 159.
159.
So it's also, the other sort of good side of it is, if that was the plan that we really wanted to do it, there might be some other funding sources, because we could potentially work with the county and see if we can include, similar to what we did at Gates Mills Boulevard here. Might be a longer project, might take a little longer to get it done.
Yeah.
But it could be part of a comprehensive, making our community more walkable and improving multimodal transportation. They would really probably want to revisit that whole corridor. Now, the other side of that is literally the other side of the road, Mayfield Heights and Lindners. We have a couple other communities involved with whatever transpires. So if we build a walk, we don't want them, 2 years later to go and put another walk in. We would just, we have to coordinate with them, I think. I don't know that you'd really want to put walks on both sides.
Right.
Pretty walk intensive. So
Yeah,
it may be a little bit of a joint venture type project.
Right.
We work with them, work with the county, and we see if we can get outside funding to provide that pedestrian access and tie
Yeah.
that chunk to our system. Now, that being said, there might be some small pieces of walkway that could tie communities into it, like the new subdivision next to the Lux. There might be a way to put a small amount of walk there to get that chunk tied into another portion of the pipe.
okay.
Don, your estimates, your cost estimates on these, is that like everything including design and
Yeah,
installation, you know?
right, that's pretty much soup to nuts. That's.
Okay.
All
Like
in.
no extra hidden costs on
No, you know,
those? It's
I tried to
everything.
make sure that the numbers, I mean, there are some big numbers there, but I think they're fair, and there's a little bit of cushion built in there for some of those potential surprises. The signal work sometimes costs a little bit more than we think. Sometimes we might get into a situation where we thought we were just gonna be doing a little bit of work on the signal, but in reality, we have to replace the whole system. So that my number has a pretty expensive fix for the signal.
John, what is the total number altogether?
I have it.
I sort of did it in my head.
See if
but-
my number matches. I had just around 8.5 million.
Yeah, it's
Nine.
over $8 million.
What have we spent so far?
The Lander Trail was all in, I think, $950,000.
Like under,
It was under
under.
$1 million, and it was under a budget. Bates Mills Boulevard, not finalized with that, but we're under our estimate for those as well.
And what was that estimate?
I don't know off the top of my head, because there were a lot of pieces, because we had the grant that we got from the county.
Right.
For the gateways, and then we also got the $800,000
Right.
for the pavement.
Right. But there's a gross cost and then there's
Right,
the
yeah,
grants and, we can do the math.
right. I don't have them all in front of me.
What we sent out to the community in our brochure for the walkways, our total estimated cost with South Woodland, Shaker, and Lander, we told the community it was estimated at 3.7 million.
Of course, that was 2 years ago.
It was, but that was the number that we floated
We're
out.
under budget so far, so, yeah, we'll have bids on South Woodland, at least a portion of it here. So.
And can we get the gross, not today, but at another, like next meeting, the gross cost of Gates Mills Boulevard?
Sure.
Just curious, because we're gonna start the next part.
Yeah.
And there are
those-
differences, but still.
Right, and as of today, we're still working on the landscape, so that's not totally done yet, but we're below the bid price on the trail, on the asphalt trail, that contractor, and we're below on the landscape as well.
Speaking of landscaping on Gatesville, I noticed a few trees not looking like they're surviving. Are they coming back around soon? Or in the
Yes,
fall to
we walked the project with them, and some of them, even though they're
brown?
actually very few trees that are bad, there's some shrubs and things, but they will not replace some of them until the fall.
Okay,
because
yeah,
they
because
can't-
it's not planted.
some of them, they can't even get the tree stock, that particular type of tree, so, and they also don't want to plant it in the summer.
And then are they gonna do the meadow mix too?
They are working on the meadow mix. If you drive or walk it, you'll notice there's areas that are sort of browned out. They put a treatment on some of those areas to take out the existing vegetation, and then they're gonna reseed it with the meadow mix. That's gonna be occurring over the next few years.
Why not make the whole thing a meadow? And that way they don't have to cut the grass or mulch it, and we don't have to have more money.
So here's a question about the trees that are already dead. So we're gonna get replacements in the fall. But then what if those trees don't make it? Do you see what I'm saying?
There's a
Because
maintenance bond on all of them.
on all
So,
of,
yeah,
even
some of them-
even after that, okay,
Yeah.
the year transpires.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, what happens is we'll have a punch list, and there will be things that are unsatisfactory.
okay,
So
Good.
those things get addressed before we actually start the maintenance bond.
Okay, good.
The maintenance bond will start after we're totally satisfied and they've replaced the handful of trees that are not looking good.
I just want to make sure we get all our trees.
Don, when would be an appropriate time to make some decisions about what to tackle next? And
Or what?
About which.
yeah,
which ones we
what
would-
trails come
right.
next?
Yeah, I think it's, I would think this,
Like the summer, this
I would
fall?
say early fall would be good, only
Yeah.
because if we want to get a jump on the design, we would start our surveying in the fall.
Yeah.
That way we're not trying to do it in the winter time.
Okay,
So, so any times, September.
okay. And before that, or I guess concurrent with that, would you be able to, this is great information, but I would love your perspective in terms of like, okay, this is like realistically like what your priority list would be, like what you would think it would make sense to group together,
Right.
how much we could realistically tackle at a time,
Right.
that sort of stuff that like we have no idea. That's
Yeah, I did look at that a little bit just because I thought I
Yeah.
that question. So, I kind of, you look at sort of the most sort of bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And the two on the top, Brainerd Road and from Cedar to Kursdale, that's about $1 million and it ties in a huge chunk of.
Can you go back to the map? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Okay, so
They have
that's
one
the
with
yellow.
230 on there.
Yeah.
That's really important, I think, and it kind of brings that whole north, sort of that northwest corner
Yeah.
of the city, ties it into walkable to the rest of the city. So,
Mhm.
and then I do like the Snowberry Chestnut on that Fairmount extension, the 167. From a design standpoint, it's pretty easy. There's no
Gotcha.
Signals involved, and you are tying in a pretty good chunk as well.
Yeah,
The other ones are good. I think those are the sort of the best of the, if you're gonna ask me which two to
Right.
start off with, those,
And you bring in
'Cause
400 homes with
And-
those two.
right.
I like particularly the idea that teal one, tying it into the circle. If you're gonna do the top yellow one,
Maybe
like
as
kind of,
well, yeah.
because then that's just like a really nice kind of corridor there.
Yeah, and that is a pretty busy corridor,
Yeah.
especially from the circle here, Brainerd up to Fairmount. It is a pretty heavily trafficked.
Okay.
section.
I think that some of the criteria that council should look at though, irrespective of, Don's, I'm not sure what opinion you're asking for, is the bang for the buck. That's what we should be looking at. There are a lot of areas, there's a lot of people who want sidewalks and they're sending us emails and
Mhm.
we should try to take care of most people at the most reasonable cost. And that's really a council decision. That's not an engineering decision.
No, I'm not asking Don to make the decision. I'm asking him for his opinion, to make a recommendation.
given us the opinion.
Right.
330 for X number of dollars. It's right there.
I have a question, Don. Someone, a resident had emailed us and brought up the Park Synagogue, area again, which I'd forgotten about, but remembered before. Do we have any estimate of anything about cost on that, or, What?
I don't have anything,
because it's marshland?
it's a challenge, I think. It does sort of fall in that other category. I think it becomes, is it a multi-purpose trail? Is it a little bit wider?
Could we get funding?
Is
from
there a
outside
funding
sources?
opportunity? There's wetlands that are impacted. There would have to be, some type of ingress egress easements. It's a pretty
Yeah.
complicated
Okay.
thing. So, could we put together an estimate? Sure, but I think first is having the discussion with the synagogue and or other stakeholders potentially.
That's their property, right?
I believe the way I understand it is their property. So it's their property.
It's
So
their-
They would have to provide an easement or. be
It's
some
their
kind of joint
property.
venture.
Well, what I was gonna say, what was the discussion at the time of that, when that was on the ballot? I mean, at that time I was, not involved in council, like only tangentially paying attention to that particular issue. And I remember thinking it was more like the implication I got was that they were gonna kind of like add trails, but like, no, that you're
That
saying
is
that this is
incorrect.
like, okay, that's
I'm a
not
member
right.
of this synagogue.
Okay.
I'm deeply rooted in this synagogue.
Okay.
That is incorrect.
Okay,
I
so
think we
the expectation was that they would potentially allow trails and Pepper Pike would pay for it.
Potentially, but I don't know that would be a discussion with their administration.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah, I think
certainly,
that's what it was.
certainly there are significant these days security issues
For sure.
on this
I
campus.
think we
Yeah.
can,
I
I
don't
think
know
we
if
can do a
anybody
little
in this
research and
room-
find out exactly
Yeah.
what's what, and rather than speculate, maybe that's better.
Yeah, I think that's something for
Yeah.
their board and their administration that they would be able to address.
And
And probably Federation.
I
We were
suspect
able,
those,
we were able to limit their further development, I remember, is one aspect.
I mean, certainly the
I
climate
don't
is.
remember all of the aspects, but it's
different.
something that, quick look at the history will tell us exactly what's what.
Yeah.
but I believe the plans that were sent to us was not anything recent. I recall seeing those before I was on council when there was discussion of the expansion.
Yeah, there was a vote.
Of Park Synagogue, yeah.
There was a vote.
That it wasn't, so I don't know where that's kind of come in the conversation. But I believe those plans are not current.
I
or
think
new.
Mr. Gentili has a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think
Let's
that's the
wait and
perfect
talk about that.
solution.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, we're all just sort of trying to test our memories here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know I don't remember enough about it
Yeah.
to be helpful. If we are done with that, I would say, since I get to play two roles here tonight, Don, it would really be helpful if we had this ahead of time before the meeting. And I hope you said you're going to make it available, so I hope that'll come to us soon. Next item are committees and department heads. Were there any committee meetings?
There was planning and zoning. We had one single issue. It was a lot split and consolidation regarding the two pieces of property owned. I don't know if everyone on council is familiar, but the Ursuline property is actually owned by two entities, the Ursuline Sisters and Ursuline College. And they kind of moved the lines and swapped some properties. Basically, and this has to do with kind of their legacy, potentially with them joining Gannon University and other down the road, potential, kind of tying up loose ends. So currently, two of their parking lots for the college were on land owned by the Ursuline Sisters. So that was problematic because the college uses them. So that property was swapped, also a stretch of land alongside the soccer fields, and at the same time, a pretty large portion of land that belonged to the college, which is forested land, is now going to be part of the Ursuline Sisters land. So the land on that far corner of the property. I can show you on a map better. So those all kind of switched. It's basically not discretionary for planning and zoning commission, but it still goes in front of us, and it's very interesting. I think for everyone here to know. It's important for everyone here to know.
I don't think there were any other committees. Did you have one? I mean, you
we did
didn't
not.
have yours.
No.
And I'd like to, though, say, and Mr. Gentili is involved with this as well, we need to get the communications committee going. We need to add some people, and hopefully we'll be able to put the application on the city's website. I've been asking for it for a while, and hopefully it'll get on pretty soon.
So Kathy's on that too, not just me.
No, I know.
I sent you my email,
Right.
my reply, so.
I appreciate you.
I'm ready to
And
go. And Jackie and I have one that we just need to share with Sheila for the infrastructure committee. I'm sorry, my voice doesn't carry. Department heads, let's start with Jim.
The only thing I've got is I'd like to thank council for passing this Cuyahoga County Waste Management Plan. I know that they worked hard on it, and they called a couple times wondering if we were going to get it on the agenda soon. They have 59 communities that have to ratify this thing, and they're trying to get everybody to take care of it as quick as possible. There is a copy of the executive summary. I think Sheila's got maybe 3 copies in council, and I'll have one in service if anybody really wants to look at it. Also, there's a link to it on Cuyahoga County or CuyahogaRecycles.org. So that's it for me.
Don, did you have anything else?
Just a quick update, Gates Mills, they're getting close to finishing the paving on that, so it'd be nice to have it done. There's the Shaker 2A sanitary sewer. These are the subdivisions to the north and south. That work is going to start at the end of the month. So they're gonna do one neighborhood at a time. So they try to limit the disruption as best they can. So in case you see some large concrete vaults and things being left on people's tree lawns over there, that's what's going on.
And Don, they'll get notice, like when will they start to get information, or have they
We
already
gave them
started?
information, we handle it.
Okay.
So make sure that everybody got it, because sometimes the mail doesn't always come through. So we've already gotten, we gave everybody a copy of their lot, picture of it, showing where the connection, if they wanted any changes or whatever. We've already had probably a dozen people respond back to
Great.
us, so it's.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Chief? Either chief?
No, just for, and I know that recent code red that went out regarding a suspect that fled a vehicle was in the robot voice again, even though we recorded a message. And I know the residents would rather have a voice message from a human. We're working on that with the county.
Thank you.
Chief, sorry. Can I ask you a question? Oh, I have a quick question. What's the deal with e-bikes and electric scooters? I've seen like a handful of kids riding them. Are they allowed on city streets? Like is our guidelines around that?
I mean, just as much as any other,
So it's fine. Okay.
hopefully they have helmets on. Right?
Did you, yeah, there was a kid riding very
Flying.
quickly
Yeah.
in the rain. Did you?
Not in the rain.
In the
but
rain,
thankfully.
no helmet,
Ugh.
in the median, and he was going very fast
On an e-bike?
on an e-bike. And at what point do they become motorcycles that have to require a license?
I mean, some of these things can do.
Pardon me?
Right.
30-something miles.
They're going with traffic. Yeah.
But why, but they're not, if they're big and powerful enough, don't they require a license plate and, no?
No, not at this point, no.
Okay.
Really?
Is that a state issue like that, or like, I guess who regulates that? That comes from the state, right?
Typically, but then
Okay.
how things worked out with the cell phones, it was.
Yeah,
initially at
yeah.
municipal level, so.
I mean, we did talk about way back when we were talking about the Gates Mills Trail. And I don't know that it's really enforceable or that we would be able to put something like that on, our police officers. But we could have a top speed on the trail, or we could limit certain things on the trail if we decided it was problematic.
I haven't
Balancing.
seen it.
I haven't seen any of that either, no. But I
Well, I'm
just,
saying, they're all, on any of our, if you want to call them sidewalk, whatever you want to call any of those, we could limit it if we decide it's problematic. I mean, I thought we were going to see how it played out.
Yeah.
Problematic for walkers and children.
These were on the street, like street.
Yeah.
They were on the
Yeah,
street.
not on the sidewalks. That's what like really threw me.
right,
Because
me too.
Kids, like. middle
Like
school.
young kids going very fast.
Well, that's, yeah, that's.
Okay.
I would think at some point there would be state regulation that say, if you're capable of going 50 miles an hour, you're no longer a bike, you're a motorcycle, right? I mean,
Well, Chief, can't we do that as a city ordinance?
I mean, that's what we did with cell phones initially.
Right.
Before
So we can control that, right?
the law.
Can you
Right.
ticket kids? Like what happens if,
If you think they're
like,
safe, call us, because
Yeah.
the parent might not even know.
right, I feel like that's
Well, the
probably the
parent
better
probably
option,
doesn't know.
right?
Same
I mean,
thing.
these kids are like
Something
12.
a scooter, like maybe the parent doesn't know they're out.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Steve, you have anything?
I have nothing.
Peter, anything besides the budget?
Sure, well, thank you for getting us through the tax budget with some thoughtful discussion and questions. I did talk to the county earlier today. There was some residents on Thornapple who weren't billed for their special assessments in the first half. They're gonna kind of get a double bill for some special assessments. Second half, I did ask them to not, if they needed to get on a payment plan, to not charge them interest. So we can get a little bit of a break that way for the residents. The finance reports, I know, Tony, you had mentioned to me, it would be great if we could get those out a little sooner. I think everybody else on council that I talked to mentioned that also. And what I'm gonna try to do is get those out by the middle of the month, and this month would be like by Friday at the latest. Hopefully I'll have those up today. So the method is gonna be to email everybody, and then they'll be posted on the website also.
Great.
And then.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Finally, I just want to give a shout out to my staff, Becky Koblach. for helping me get ready for the meeting. And of course, Sheila Brett O'Connor, who's, been helping me out quite a bit. I know last time before the meeting, I was coming in for Toledo. She had a cup of hot tea with extra caffeine ready for me.
It just boiled one.
So, they've been helping me get acclimated, so definitely a shout out to my staff, Becky and Sheila. Thanks.
Peter, thank you for the presentation on the budget. That was very helpful.
And thank you for all the attention to detail. I mean, even just at the, following up on the Thornapple issue is
We appreciate it.
tremendous, much appreciated.
And then reporting it to us is appreciated.
I won't pretend to know what the mayor was going to say, so I won't say anything as the mayor.
He's gonna talk about the taste of pepper pie.
Oh, yes, taste the pepper pie,
Tickets are on sale.
whenever it is. I don't know.
Sunday, June 22nd, 5 o'clock.
All right. Council, anybody on council have anything else?
I just had a quick question for Don. Can you remind us, like, the other parts of Gates Mills, when that is gonna be planned and?
We received funding as
Right.
an ODNR. We can't start on it until they finalize their environmental document, and we've gone back and forth with them on a couple things. So we are hoping to get the green light from them anyway.
Okay, and then maybe start some this year?
Then we'll start, the design will start very soon.
And Don, do we have any idea if the thing is supposed to continue on up into Mayfield? Do we have any idea what they're gonna do?
I really don't, there was some discussion about that they were losing that funding, and I don't know if they walked away from it or not, I don't know where they're at in that process, so. They also at one point said, well, if Covered Pike does their trail, then we'll do ours, so we're holding up our end of the bargain, but I don't know, I think we're calling their bluff on that one.
And will
Thank
we-
you.
Oh, sorry about. Will we have the opportunity to have like some reflection from MKSK and thoughts about the differences, things that we could do better, things that we want to make sure we do more from our first experience on the Gates Mills
Yeah,
Trail?
I mean, we haven't, once we start the design process, we can bring them in and talk about what we thought, what we really liked, some of the things that we were maybe so about, and we can go through.
And things that they thought, as
Right.
they worked through
What
it.
they,
Okay.
what they liked as well.
And the Parks and Beautification Committee would be available for any of those discussions if we needed to put it at the committee level.
Yeah, I know we've been on hold for a discussion on the bench. I don't, I think there's a recommendation, so maybe that could help us move forward on that too.
Anybody else? Audience, just a reminder, say your name and address first. Judy?
Judy Neff, 2632 Sun Center Road. I'm bothered by the irony that we're spending so much time and so much money on sidewalks when the City Hall building is barely ADA compliant. And I'd like to see a reexamination of the priorities on that.
Thank you.
Richard Ferguson, 29200 Edgefield Road. 3 items, a quick about the e-bikes. There's some teens or preteens that live on Gates Mills, and I've seen them go up and down that path at the trail at high speeds. Secondly, I'm really concerned at the federal level, the deconstruction and destruction of our public health system. I'm old enough to remember the vaccines came out after I was born. So like I had the mumps, I remember kids in leg braces for polio. Is there anything at the local level that we can do to support the public health system? Because it's being destroyed, vaccine policies across the board. And I just want to put that out. Is there anything at the local level that can be done to support public health workers in our area? And the third thing, when you talked about the property taxes, I understand there's a statewide coalition to eliminate property taxes. They're getting a lot of signatures. I don't know what the momentum in it is. But if that does happen at the state level, where they do away with property taxes, and we don't have industry or anything like that, what does that do to our tax base? Is there any kind of a secondary plan? Or are you going to rely on the state coming up with sale taxes, sin taxes to make up the difference.
Those are good points.
Steve, is there?
Regarding the federal issue, that is, you could be politically active, really. That's the only solution. Obviously, the municipal governments cannot direct federal
Groups
policy.
can be more effective than individuals, is all I'm saying, at the local level. If we can do things as a group versus.
That's not the job of the local government. I agree with you that people can combine their voices and put pressure on their Congress people. But from a municipal standpoint, we're limited in our jurisdiction to do something regarding that.
Not even funding local initiatives or anything like that, it might be cut off at the federal level.
Yes, you could do that. You would have the authority to do that.
So
But
just, things to think about.
Anybody else? In the back?
Yes, my name is Barb Bramwell at 2854 Drive. I think it was last week, I saw someone on a golf cart on the trail on Lander Road. Is that permissible?
I'm sorry.
Golf cart.
A golf cart.
Golf cart.
Lander. Maybe we should revisit the idea of, I know everyone poo-pooed it really quickly, but maybe we should revisit it, what vehicles or what speed can be on the trail.
Do we have any, is there anything?
Call us up. We'll go and be with them and discuss it with them.
I mean, I know the problem is you can't be in the business of then policing the trail with, I mean, they can, but we're only staffed to a certain level, so that would be not your first level, but if you saw them,
Anything unsafe?
and if you saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the point of having an ordinance, but without an ordinance, you can't really do much.
But under community caretaking and safety.
You could speak to them.
Manny?
Manny Knapp, 2632 Sound Center Road. I was the resident who made a public record request for the city's list of residents' email addresses, and I took extra steps to make the request known to all elected city officials. I have no intention of using this list, nor do I agree with the Ohio Supreme Court's decision to legally require local governments to disclose these lists. I have deleted the file as the point has been made clear that there's no transparency and timely communications are not being made with the residents of Pepper Pike. Obviously, the city cannot be blamed for the decisions made by the court, but it must be held accountable for not communicating this information to all its residents and not prioritizing, planning, and implementing an action plan to mitigate this court ruling that was issued over 6 months ago on November 21st, 2024. Surely the mayor and the law director had to be aware that the Ohio Supreme Court was ruling on this case as it's been going on since 2023. The mayor's email letters pertaining to the Ohio Supreme Court ruling you received on June 4th and 5th should have been issued as early as December 1st, 2024. However, the mayor chose not to inform council or the residents of Pepper Pike of this new law, thereby leaving residents unaware of potentially unlimited access to their emails by anyone at any time. Rather than taking responsibility, the mayor now blames me because I brought the issue to light. I also deeply resent his inappropriate and personal innuendos regarding my integrity and intentions. Because my public record request has brought this issue out in the open, residents can now take whatever action they deem necessary to protect their email addresses from those who truly want to misuse their information. Potential political candidates, businesses, scammers, etc. Additionally, please know that my request for this public record was made on June 3rd, not only customarily to Sheila Brett O'Connor, the clerk of council, but also to all the elected officials of the city, so that all would be aware of that request coming in. I have been making public records requests for various information for many, many, many years prior to most city council meetings. This issue also brings into focus that a communication committee was formed over 18 months ago to identify and resolve this type and many other communication issues the city's experienced, such as poorly constructed city website that is difficult to navigate, and lack of two-way remote access for residents to city meetings, and etc. Despite repeated requests from numerous people over the 18 months, there's only been one communication meeting, and none is scheduled for the month of June. Without a prioritization of how important it is for this committee to meet, function, and recommend solutions to these communication issues, the cities will continue to be exposed to problems like the current topic. In spite of the mayor's innuendos and the social media postings that it has generated, I assure you that the email data was not used, shared, or shown to anyone, and has been deleted from my files. The file was initially needed to be acquired to validate the existence of this problem. I asked the residents to write to their elected officials requiring the city to prioritize improving its communication on all subjects to all residents. During the past several years, we've all seen an appalling lack of information on many issues from the city to the residents. I ask that this letter be included in the minutes of today's meeting, and I'll present Sheila with a copy of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. Anyone else? Colonel Rice?
Robert Rice, 2445 Edgewood Trace. Don, that was a great brief. So I loved it. Can you pull it back up by any chance?
Nope. It's unplugged, sorry.
Okay, so just to point out the Cedar Road piece, so the yellow was 267-ish homes, which included Edgewood Trace and Lux and Levant. So lots of homes.
Right.
And 167 for Cedar, but Cedar, you have to add 167 plus 39 from Edgewood Trace plus 80 from Lux, because those both are on Cedar as well as with access drainage.
I didn't add the lots to that because it was picked up.
Right, but my point is it's a dual. It's because
Right.
you can go out the Lux onto Cedar and walk east on Cedar, and same with Edgewood Trace, walk east and west, and we're very close to Brainerd and Lander. So
Right.
I just point that out, even though is Edgewood Trace in the green or the yellow? I think it was in the yellow.
Edgewood Trace was in the green.
Was always in the green, okay.
Yeah, the issue that we get into is you got a corner house, I can only count it once. So-
Gotcha.
So that basically, we didn't double count it.
No, so I like your methodology. Also, I submitted a letter to Sheila today, you should all have it, or we'll get it today. Only requesting that you develop an ordinance so that all council candidates undergo a full background check. I spent some time at City Hall today, And I know that all public safety folks to undergo a full background check. I was talking to the finance director, he said, yeah, I had to go get a full background check from NCIC, from Credit Bureau. So I think, I put in the letter, when I first decided to run for council and pulled my petitions, I talked to the police chief and said, okay, tell me about the background check requirements. He said, we don't have any. And I was a little shocked. So seems to me that everybody who's leading the city should undergo the same or more intense scrutiny than people that we're hiring. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Anyone else?
Anne Marie Warren, 25050 Cedarwood Road. I, first time coming to a council meeting, I was motivated by the email suggesting that my contact information was shared. I reached out to Mr. Neff. He assured me that he had deleted that list, which I appreciated. I want to tell you, in my brief conversation with the mayor, he never disparaged your integrity. So I did not experience that. But I would like information about council, and I didn't know there was a communications committee. It took me a good 10 minutes to find out when this meeting was being held tonight, hunting around on that website. So I just would ask for some consideration of either hiring a communications professional to help develop a comprehensive outreach strategy that serves our community better. And or if that's the role of the committee, I would encourage that committee to take this moment very seriously.
Thank you.
I think that's something that we should, we have talked about prioritizing placing things on the website more prominently. I think that's something, we should put as a, and also make sure it's more prominent on our newsletter. I think that that's a low hanging fruit thing that we could do. And there are a few other things that have been upcoming in previous meetings. I know Rick isn't here and he controls our social media, although the communications committee definitely should be working on that.
Yeah,
So
the website is controlled by the mayor, and I think
by the mayor, and so
is the
administrator, but I know he controls all of those things. So I did just want to say, because I was pretty appalled personally, and I think the rest of council probably would be, on the attacking, mean-spirited language, attacking Mr. Naft in recent times. I think I'd like to assume that this attack was just a misunderstanding of what was happening with the Ohio Supreme Court. I would have also have appreciated council being informed immediately upon release of the decision. I think we could have acted proactively. I think it's completely off target that Mr. Naft was attacked and shameful. And he informed basically the community of a risk that they were now under, something that council or the administration wouldn't have anticipated previously when we've always collected emails. Nevertheless, something that we could have acted on more immediately, given our community the option to have their emails, if they chose, removed from future lists, or at the very least have a notation, which would have just been advisory, saying, please do not contact me for other purposes. That's at least giving them the ability to push back on any emails with informed notice to those entities, although obviously it wouldn't stop anything. And we did not have that opportunity. So I would appreciate in the future if we were given an opportunity to respond to something that would be so important to members of our community and alarming. And also, I'd appreciate if individual community members' reputations and names were kept out of the conversation in a way that was defamatory or inaccurate.
Steve, can I ask when you were aware of this decision?
There was an email that went out from the listserv some time ago. I don't remember specifically.
Okay. So
I answer legal questions from officials, and I can't be responsible for advising everybody of every case that come out. The way I think about it is my email is shared everywhere with everyone. It's easy to delete email that you get from somebody you don't want. And if you don't want an email from somebody, you click unsubscribe, and they are supposed to unsubscribe you if it's commercial email. So, if somebody is getting emails that they don't like, they should communicate back, please delete my email and do not use it. And that should solve that problem.
Sure, I 100% agree with that. I guess my question is, it's not part of your job description to like proactively let us know changes in the law that could potentially affect the city?
There are literally, there are always changes in the law that could potentially affect the city.
Okay.
I need to be ready to answer a question if somebody makes a public records request. And we're finding that people who are politically active are making these records requests in many communities and using it as a tool to catch up with the folks who do have established email lists and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Well, I think this is something, we know it happened in Orange, just within days of us.
Mhm.
And I think it was for the same purpose of flagging it to the community. So I agree with Jackie, if somehow we could come up with a list of hot topics or something that we would like to be informed of, so we could, if that's, or even just a list of, I don't know, cases that are, hot topic cases from the Ohio Supreme Court that we should be aware of. I think it would have been nice.
I'm sorry, we're getting past the.
You're right.
the audience comments. I would like to throw in, though, I think, Steve, you have good judgment, and that this is the kind of thing that I think that you could have shared with council upon knowing about it. I think that should be part of your job description, and if it isn't, we should add it.
Can I add?
Something of this important.
I'd like to also say, if Mr. Naft, if you had this information and you felt it was important for the city to have it, I know that you have my cell phone and you have my landline, and we've talked about many things. I would invite anybody who has a concern like that, feel free to call or contact any one of us. And we could get the ball rolling on things like that.
Respectfully, I've contacted you so many times.
All right, let's
Kind of back and forth.
let's
I would like to
There's
just
nobody
quickly
else?
add to that, like that I was disappointed and surprised that the first that I was hearing of any changes of that was with the email out to the community.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
The question is what they.
We need to hire. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I don't know.